Following the hello everyone. This is Cody Lee of blackcatbooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole Lore and Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. Following the news that Mario Rabbids did not do very well, it seems there's been a rash of like Twitter threads and discussions on the internet about the current state of Ubisoft, and this has been something I've been casually observing for quite some time now. But it seems like over the past decade, Ubisoft went from being one of the most successful, most well-known, most beloved major third-party publishers to just being kind of a joke. Assassin's Creed imploded over the past decade. Um, their Tom Clancy died. They lost. They still, I believe, they still have the Tom Clancy license, but like without the man behind the brand, keeping it relevant, I don't think it really means a whole lot anymore. They have, Splinter Cell is gone, is irrelevant. Rayman's dead. Mario Rabbids isn't doing well. Starlink was a disaster. There are all these examples of things that just went completely wrong. And Watch Dogs, I think. I don't believe Watch Dogs 3 ever came out. And if it did, it was a complete disaster. I Ubisoft 10 years ago was shaping up to be one of the biggest game publishers in the world. And now it feels more and more like they are going to be the next major studio to be on the way out. Like I expect that very soon we'll get news that Ubisoft is prepping perhaps for an acquisition. I've heard news of this for quite some time, and I don't know like the veracity of it. I don't know how like relevant it is, but I do think it is in the cards. I have heard these kind of statements over the past couple of years, and I do think Ubisoft, being one of the most woke companies in the gaming industry, I would say the wokest actually. Like Ubisoft, pioneers of like Assassin's Creed. Let's criticize religion. Let's criticize conservative values. I I was not. I am not surprised that nobody's willing to pick them up because they have the most disjointed, like incapable, worthless team building imaginable. Like who at their nobody at their business really knows how to make a video game. Like for the past decade, they've essentially like taken Assassin's Creed assets and just like reused them for other games. And it's getting like really transparent at this point. Like I think even casuals, people who like love stuff like Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag, like the people who like worship those games and really got behind them, like they really fell off like after AC4. Like I think Assassin's Creed became lost. I think because of the way they structured the plot and just how the series just continues indefinitely. Like I think most players just lost interest in it. Like people made it very clear early on that we want like a Japanese Assassin's Creed game. We want one with ninjas and stuff like that. And we never actually got one. And that was all people wanted, like in the post Black Flag era. But we never actually got it. We got like a bunch of like European city rehashes. We got like a French Revolution one, and now we got like an ancient Greece one, which I don't think anybody was really pushing for. Like we just have all these like missteps across like these huge franchises, ones that really are impacting the development studio and like it's the publisher. And as a result of that, it really does feel like the company is just unviable. Like it feels like they're not going to be able to find a buyer because the company is just there's no asset to it. That there's nothing to them. There's no reason to acquire Ubisoft because they are the biggest, most shovelware heavy company imaginable. They are the worst. Like Activision when Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, like they got a bunch of like really strong IPs, like namely Call of Duty. They got like all this stuff that was still going very strong even today. What would Ubisoft have to offer for an acquisition? Like what have they done recently that's worth a damn? And like there really is nothing, honestly. And I don't think that's going to change. Like, I legit think we might see a situation in which Ubisoft just might like start folding and having to where am I? Having to start selling off IPs to stay afloat, which might actually be interesting to see if we can see like any if they have anything worth bringing back or owning or like I don't think they do. So like nobody's gonna want to buy Ubisoft and like acquire this company. They can't produce new games on their own, and more I think they're gonna have to like rely on like really cheap cash grabs. And I think that was what Sparks of Hope was meant to be. Mario Rabbids. This actually seems to be what like is sparking this discussion. By the way, is that like Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope did not sell very well, and like the CEO kind of commented on it, and it makes me think that like that's actually very concerning for them. Is that this major partnership with a Nintendo property didn't do very well for them. Like I think that that's a really big indication of just where they're at right now. Not Nintendo, because of course like Nintendo games are still doing as well as ever, but like Mario Rabbids, the Ubisoft game does not. And like they can't use the excuse that like, oh, this game doesn't appeal to Nintendo audiences because it has Mario in it. Like how exactly can you not get Mario to sell on a Nintendo platform? It's simple. The game itself just is not very good. And like everyone can kind of see it. Like the only people defending Sparks of Hope are like people who are like radical, like Paper Mario fanboys who like orgasmed at the realization that like, oh, there are original characters in this. Like there are like all these things to take into account when talking about Ubisoft right now, and I'm curious to see like if Ubisoft is going to be the next company to fold, and I think it might be. People don't really talk about like how Activision Blizzard technically isn't a thing anymore, how they're technically under Microsoft, how Bethesda isn't really a thing anymore, how they're technically under Microsoft. But we are in the middle of the next gaming crash, in which like a lot of these major players in the gaming sphere are being forced into this position where they have to be acquired by other companies, specifically Microsoft, but in Bungie's case, Sony. Like these companies have to sell out because otherwise they can't really justify what they've been doing for to their shareholders, right? Because they keep pulling these crazy stunts that don't really make any sense from like a financial perspective. Like Sega's, uh, like for example, how many of them still refuse to develop for Nintendo Switch? Like there are a ton of companies who still haven't put out anything on the console, and Ubisoft is absolutely one of them. There are a lot of Ubisoft games that weren't even considered for the Switch platform, and I think that was a major blow against them. It was it was a misstep, to not support the Switch. I think for the vast majority of these companies, and they are reaping the rewards for that. Ubisoft just we're seeing more and more bankruptcies. We're seeing more and more like collapses. We're seeing more and more issues with the way things are going in the gaming sphere, and it's it's going to be glorious seeing like Ubisoft go out of business because this is a company that I've hated for the longest time. They screwed over the Wii U. They keep going back on all their promises. They make terrible games for one. Like there's just so many things over the years that just made me hate Ubisoft more than I hate like most AAA companies. So I'll be very glad to see them go. I'll be very glad to see Square Enix go. That's kind of my thought process right now. My prediction for this year. The two major video game publishers that I expect to have like major problems going forward that may actually end up in bankruptcy: Square Enix and Ubisoft. You heard it here first. That is going to be the next major third party companies to collapse. And those are companies that are major supporters of the PlayStation platform. So as more and more of these companies collapse, as like AAA games stop getting produced, as like there's less and less games for like casuals to consume, PlayStation is going to struggle more and more to stay relevant. we are going to see situations in which PlayStation 5 goes long periods of time without any new games because the third party companies that used to prop these games up with releases, Konami, Square, Capcom, like they're just going under left and right. They're just having all these problems. And I'm curious just what's going to happen going forward. What exactly can we expect to see from Ubisoft going forward? Only time will tell.